Okay, I've been asked by a couple of people to do a tutorial for the Fostex VF160ex. It's a 16 track Porta Studio. I've owned this and I've owned the VF80 as well, which is the 8 track version. Both are really reliable, good machines. And the bonus of the 16 track is, compared to other Porta Studios that came out a few years ago, is that it's 16 standalone mono tracks, no stereo tracks, and pretty simple to use. So let's power it up. The power's at the back there. To monitor, you need to insert your headphones, which can go on the top here, just a standard 1/4 inch jack in there. You can external monitor out through the top here with 2 1/4 inch jacks going into whatever you choose. And both have independent volume controls. At the back also for monitoring there's a phono output, which I've got sending just to a standard amp and then going out to 2 external monitors. Okay, so once we powered up, which powers up pretty fast, we need to select a new program. So we go into Program Select at the top here, top right hand corner, and if we scroll to the right and then select New Program, we hit Yes to enter that. It then comes up with our title edit for the new program. You can go through the jog wheel. It's a bit fiddly to put a name in. I tend to just maybe put a couple of letters, or for this you can just choose the number of the file which it'll give you, which mine's file 73. So you can hit exit to get out of this, or enter to put in whatever name you want. So I'm just going to hit exit. It'll then give me a select menu where I can do some further editing to the file, but we don't need to do any of that. So exit out of that, and then it starts. There we are in the new file. Okay, so this is where we start recording. This is your master fader, the red one, so get that up to 0. And at this point we just need to plug something in, so you plug in your guitar or whatever you need to put in. For this I'm just going to use a standard SM58, which is an XLR to jack. It's a dynamic mic. Obviously if you were using a condenser mic, you then either need an external phantom power, or there is a phantom power inside the box as well, but we'll come to that in a bit. So we need to plug this up. I'm going to use track 8 mainly because some of the inputs on this are a bit shot, and track 8 seems to work fine. So we've plugged in here at the top of the desk. On track 7 and 8 there's the option to put in either an XLR or a jack. We're going for the jack input. So we inputted it in here. The next thing to do to arm the track is to select record track direct, because we're recording direct into the box. So we hit that and it starts to flash, and then we select the number of the track that we want to arm. I'm plugged into input 8, and I therefore can record either onto 8 or onto the track below 16. Each input relates either to these top 8 or the bottom 8, if that makes sense. So to keep things simple, let's arm track 8 as I'm plugged into 8. Okay, that's already armed. We can put the fader up to 0 also, and then just lightly press the record button and that starts flashing. Just hit exit here just to get to the main recording screen, and as we can see at the moment, I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm just getting a little bit of volume registering on the fader display there. So what we need to do is give it a bit more trim. The trim selects up here, just on the knobs at the top here. Just dial in how much you need, 222, and there we go, we've got it sending through here. So let's go for that. There we go, and you can hear that coming through on the monitor. Obviously you wouldn't want that if you're recording. So then we're ready to record something. All armed and ready to go. You get your volume where you want it. Obviously don't exceed the top line. If you do, there's some little peak meters in here which are pretty generous. It's quite hard to actually peak this box. So now we want to record our piece of music. Just like on a normal tape player, we hit record and play together and the lights stop flashing, and now we're recording. And you can see the seconds pass on the clock, and also you can see the access light flash green to show that it's accessing the hard drive. Okay, so we've recorded our song now, so we will want to press stop, just like again you would do on any normal CD player or tape player, and then we can either shuttle back to the start using the rewind, or if you hit stop and rewind, again much like on an old tape player, it'll just take us right back to the start of the file. Same works with stop and forward. It'll take us to the end of the file, which was 24 seconds long. Okay, so then to play that back together, we just hit play. The lights stop flashing, and now we're recording. Okay, good stuff. So then that's that piece recorded onto track 8, and to multi-track we would just continue to do so. You know, you can plug a guitar into track 6, record on that in the same way, and start building your song up. Now because my inputs, some of them look a little bit dodgy, and that's one of the things which can go quite quickly on these Porter Studios, and they can start building up static and pop problems and stuff. You can then start moving tracks around. The one thing which I think lets this down a bit is the editor. I use it quite simply. I've kind of found a way around it to keep it quite simple, rather than cutting and pasting, which is really clumsy and difficult to use on this. To move your tracks around, if you hit edit, it'll then come up with copy clip. Hit on the jog wheel just a few times over to go to track exchange. Hit yes, and go through the jog wheel. It'll give you a number of options. Scroll around until you get to your track. So we've recorded on track 8, and I'm going to put that on track 1 to keep things organised. Hit yes, and it says the exchange is complete, and then here we are on track 1. The lights stop flashing. We've got our track, and now we're recording. Track 8, because it's a nice new file, is all empty and erased and ready to use. Okay. When it comes to erasing, the way I've done for all my time using this is old school, just to play, record and play, and literally record without any inputs, dead noise. A little bit more time consuming, but as I say, I haven't come across anyone that successfully uses this erase and paste function on the machine. Okay, when it comes to effects on our file, let's just unplug that. Effects on our file, there's a pretty okay 3-band EQ, so let's just hit record and hit that to unarm track 8, and here's our track 1. There's a pretty good 3-band EQ which is here. Main floor of this is the low, only goes as low as I think 400 Hertz, so it's not particularly editable in your in the sort of lower mids. But anyway, to do that we click on either low, mid or high. All the tracks start flashing, so we want to select track 1, and then it gives us some options which we can edit with the jog wheel up and down, like that, to give us how much we want the curve to be on the EQ. Using this hold button, which has also got 4 triangles on it, you can jog through the options here to change your frequency where you want it on the mid-range, for example, and that's that really. like I say, it's fairly decent EQ, but the the low only goes as low as 400 Hz there, which is a bit limiting. Okay, that's that. You also have some built-in effects. They're next to the EQ here. The Effect 1, Effect 2 button you can jog between, and you get 16 dials up on here, which you again move with the jog wheel, which affect each track on how much of the effect you want to dial in. To choose the effects above, Effect 1, Effect 2, you get a bunch of reverbs for Effect 1. Effect 2 has some other things in it, a few useless things, a flanger and a chorus that sound pretty horrible. All pretty editable. They're not the best reverbs, I don't think, in the world. They're quite editable, and you can get an alright sound if you take your time with them. I probably suggest, if you don't know too much about reverbs, to get on Google and just have a read about editing them to mix properly, because the presets are they're just a bit digital and a bit thin and not particularly nice sounding. Okay, again on this sort of track edit function, you've got a pan, so we can pan left and right. That's pretty simple, just using a jog. For all of these settings, once you start building your tracks together, you can store, which is by hitting this store button. It comes up with our mix here, and we use our yes button to hit enter and store these settings. It won't store our faders, but it stores our EQ and effect sends. Also here is the amount of an auxiliary effect if you want to dial that in. That involves sending something like, I don't know what we've got here, like sending in this piece of, this is a DBX mini comp, sending that through the back, and then dialing in the amount you want from this external piece of hardware onto the track. I don't think many people will be doing that, but if you are, drop me a comment and I can tell you about that. I think that's pretty much it. There is the function to do bus recording and bouncing, but I'll probably save that for another day. If anyone needs it again, then I'll put it on the video or do another video. It saves automatically when you switch it off. There are some mastering functions in it, wouldn't recommend it. One of its really massive limitations is that it doesn't have a USB out, so it's quite outdated in that sense. So you have to mix down inside the box, or send a stereo mix then into, record it real time into your sequencing software, or record real time all your separate tracks into your sequencing software and then sync it all up, which is that sounds like far too complicated for me. Anyway, I hope that helps, and if there's anything I've left out, then just let me know. Cheers.